Hello everyone! Boom finally has released his long-anticipated episode 73, or just the first part of it to say more precisely. And remember how I asked in my previous analyses, when will we finally get to the lore-focused episodes instead of pure action ones? Well, it seems like Boom heard all of our prayers, and even more of that because today's episode was as lore-focused as possible. And the information I got from it simply blew me away. That's why I took such a long time analyzing it, because believe me, my friends, the number of details and references in this episode was just insane. But trust me, I found all of the smallest details and plot twists in here. And this analysis is definitely the most intricate and thorough I've ever done on this channel. What's the true backstory of Plungerman, Camerawoman, and Lucky Cameraman? And how are they actually connected to the secret agent? What deepest secrets did we learn from watching all the flashbacks from Camerawoman's record sessions, and what details all of you certainly missed in them? And why was G-Man so eager while being crowded by a bunch of his arch-enemies? And what secret does he have up his sleeve? What I'm gonna tell you today, you won't find anywhere but on this channel only, so be sure to definitely get your tea and snacks ready this time, because today's analysis is about to get lengthy. Let's go. So the episode starts with the events of the third part of episode 70. And that's where we can notice how we turned out to be in the shoes of no other than Camerawoman herself. I was waiting for the moment where we could learn more about her as a character, and even see her as the potential POV for quite some time, I must tell you. And now this moment has finally come, and I couldn't be more joyful about it. As you'll understand later, we will indeed figure out just a freaking ton of amazing information about Camerawoman, and not only her backstory, but also plenty of other characters of Skibidi toilets. But before talking about it, let's pay our attention to what we're seeing on our screens right now, so we can still see the badly damaged Plungerman when he was still alive for a few brief seconds. And at this moment, I noticed the broken protective lens that fell off his head camera, and this was the same lens that was given to him by the blue-shirted big cameraman who passed away at the end of episode 68. This lens once saved Plungerman from the terrible influence of destructive red glow of this Skibidi's TV. But it also happened combined with the help from our brave Chad, the Dark Speaker Man, and we'll also talk about him as well. And by the way, check out how, while still being alive, Plungerman turns his head to the right for one split second, and we know that at this moment he saw Lucky Cameraman literally coming back from the world of shadows, which of course the other characters couldn't see, because they were too focused on other things in front of their eyes. But before we would continue, I'd like to point out one fascinating detail to you guys. Check closer the figure of Plungerman. At the moment when he had been destroyed by the secret agent, we can see the slight trace of green glow near the main part of his body, after which he gets consumed by the fire immediately and lays on the ground without any signs of life. As we all know, the green glow is the first and foremost sign of the secret agent's direct influence. And considering that at the moment when this glow appeared, both of them communicated with each other somewhere in another realm, this glow was a significant hint for the Alliance's agents that were present next to Plungerman at that time. Let me explain what I mean by this. I was expressing this opinion for quite a long time already, that the Alliance will be searching for the culprit of their best elite agent's destruction, and that sooner or later, the traces of this investigation will bring them to the secret agent. So this green glow appearing at the moment of Plungerman's departure may indicate about this to them later when the puzzle will be closer to being complete. And why I told you about investigation I'll explain a little bit later, as it will be extremely important, so brace with me. And there is one more thing I would like to discuss before moving to the Dark Speaker Man and my beloved Speaker Woman. In the beginning of this episode, we could see the body of Plungerman through the eyes of Camerawoman all this time. And earlier, when I had analyzed the third part of episode 70, I suspected that Plungerman could have been fully teleported by the secret agent to another realm where they could have had their conversation. And after declaring the Plungerman's necessity to die, the secret agent could have transferred him back to the real world and then set him on fire. So that could have explained a total shock on both Camerawoman and TV Woman's faces. But as we could see in this episode, Plungerman's body was present in the real world all this time. So that would mean that the whole conversation he had had with the secret agent had been happening in his mind palace all this time, and that some telepathy skills of Boom could have been used in the process. And then we see how Camerawoman POV turns to her friend Speaker Woman and tries to console her gently as she was leaning over the body of our late Chad Dark Speakerman, and it was pretty obvious at the moment that he meant quite a lot to her. The emotions brewing inside of my beloved red-lensed girl were apparently so strong that she even pushed away the hand of Camera Woman with irritation as she was consumed with grief for her late comrade. And it even seemed to me that the feelings that she had for him was a little bit too strong to be appropriate enough for me. But you know what, this moment was a real tragedy to all of us anyways, so I think I'll let it slide and give my girl a proper moment to respect her dear friend who was the strongest Speakerman warrior in pair with her all this time, so they definitely knew something about each other. And then she gets hugged by TV Woman, which we saw from Plungerman's POV back in episode 70, and then something really striking happens. It turns out that all this time we were just watching a recording from Camera Woman's head camera, and then this recording gets rewound. And why we're seeing flashbacks all of a sudden, and who's watching these recordings. I'm going to tell you a little bit later, so be sure to keep watching this video to unveil the truth with me. And the first flashback that we see is referring to episode 57, where Camera Woman was present as well as she tried to shoot G-Man down, and we could see that this flashback was definitely through her POV because the placement and the angle of view is exactly the same. And then we're getting transferred to the events of episode 52, and we're still in Camera Woman's skin because we see the POV showing 2 thumbs up towards Plungerman, and that's her iconic gesture only. And also in this moment when she turns her head in Skibidi Toilet's direction, we can see that there is no cameraman in sight, which means that the original POV of episode 52 is somehow missing, and I wonder why. And then the flashback cuts off immediately, before getting shown how Camera Woman was about to use her special combat ability on Skibidi Toilets rushing towards them too. But don't worry, because we'll still see her POV in action later. But this moment made me remember how well Camera Woman treated her buddy Plungerman once again, and appreciated it even more in the context of everything we'll learn in this episode. Okay, and then we're getting transferred once more. And this time it's not a concrete episode we could remember from earlier days, but an exclusive Camera Woman footage. And based on the color of Plungerman's tie in this shot, the happening events were taking place somewhere near episode 36, I believe. Because Plungerman got his iconic black tie only by episode 45, and before that he had been wearing red tie only. So yeah, the background with the infected Titan Speakerman ripping everything apart with explosive everywhere around him definitely sent me back to some good old days. Life had been so much easier then, you know. And by the way, if you wondered what could have been inside this car near Plungerman, don't you worry because I already checked it meticulously and no secret agent had been detected in it. And here's another tiny detail I noticed in this scene. Do you see the row of infected big cameramen trotting slowly behind Plungerman's back? This actually surprised me because the Alliance learned how to deal with the parasites infecting big cameramen specifically in episode 36. And after that we could see no infected cameramen anymore. We only saw infected Speakermen in episode 37. And then there are no infected members of the Alliance at all later in the series. So if events of this flashback date back to episode 38, what are these infected cameramen doing here? Maybe Boom could simply forget about this detail, or maybe those cameramen are the last remnants of infected members of the Alliance by episode 38. And then we're getting even earlier back to episode 23, but before that, I would like to draw your attention to this tiny frame when we could see the process of rewind. And to tell you honestly, guys, I have no idea what this image could refer to because it looks like it's the body of the Dark Speakerman, but then what is this core-like thing in the middle of his chest? Are we seeing the process of his revival or upgrade or something like this? I am really curious what ideas you guys have about this detail, so be sure to write them in the comments below. Okay, and now let's discuss the actual flashback. So it's definitely the same cameraman's laboratory from episode 23, but we're looking on Titan Cameraman at the different angle, and the timing is probably different too. Because at the moment of the actual episode, we saw the laboratory with Titan Cameraman being upgraded in it getting attacked. But at the moment of this flashback, everything was peaceful and quiet. Plus, I have a suspicion that Plungerman, together with Camera Woman, got in here also a little bit later. And in the actual episode, there were probably cameramen, scientists, and engineers only in this room. Although it is still possible that they could have been there all this time, because if we'll rewatch episode 23, then we would see that the angle under which Plungerman could have been seen in the frame is cut due to the episode being in a shorts format. And I have another guess that the scientist cameraman standing next to Plungerman in this scene is actually our old friend Mecha Scientist. And why I think so will be more obvious to you as you will keep watching this video. And you guys can also have one question about this scene, which is why the heck is Plungerman missing his leg? Because it's much earlier than episode 57, so what is this trickery? And to answer this question, let's move on to another flashback. Okay, and this flashback has plenty to look at, actually. First thing first, that's obviously a throwback to episode 15, as the environment is definitely from this episode, because it's obviously the same street. And let me refresh your memory about the earliest episodes real quick, because the events of this flashback are actually taking place in the moment when there was a large trap planned for Skibidi toilets as means of revenge for episode 14. Because in that episode, a huge number of cameramen was hurt and destroyed by reactive toilet, who appeared out of nowhere. So that's why the explosive trap was created that was later activated by the Baba Booey red button. And we can even notice the same red car from episode 15 where the explosives were stored. So this whole flashback occurs when the squad, full of all the familiar faces, gets to the scene and investigates what happened. Okay, so who we see right away is our old buddy Simp Cameraman. But actually, I have a lot of information to tell you about him based on this brief interaction, but it would be much more convenient for me to dedicate a separate part of this video to him specifically. So I'll tell you everything about his character after I'll be done with all the flashbacks. And the same thing can be applied both to Lucky Cameraman and Make a Scientist, who are also featured in this exact flashback, and not only this one. But for now, let's focus on Camera Woman and Plunger Man in this scene. Plunger Cameraman still wears his red tie, which makes him match the big cameraman dressed in red shirt far in the background. And by the way, we saw a lot of this guy back in the days, but then he sadly never appeared on the screen after episode 34. Okay, so it was really convenient that I mentioned Reactive Skibidi earlier because he decided to suddenly reappear and crash Plungerman, who tried to stand his ground in this shot, and that explains why he missed one leg in the flashback to episode 23. Okay, and now let's move to the last flashback we have, and to put it lightly, it will simply blow y'all's mind. So, this is the highlight and the best moment of the whole episode, and this scene gave me so much material to think about. But before that, I caught another interesting image in the process of rewind that looks like a CCTV camera, but who it belongs to is not very clear. And then we get to the most interesting part. At first, we see how the camera resolution got changed to square-like shape, and we also got the vibe of the old cassettes from its current quality. All that happened due to one simple fact. Just check out the date in the corner of the screen where it says that it's the 16th of September, year 1985. So the camera reflects the 80s now. Then we see the face of a young woman who's sitting the camera on the surface so it would face her and a group of her colleagues doing some observation at the moment. And oh boy, where do I even start? First of all, let me address the words that can be heard very blurry in the background, and they sound like, "Attention Group C, please prepare for the experiment." And I found it to be really interesting because on the one hand, it may refer to simple ranking of different scientific groups in alphabetical order, but on the other hand, I couldn't help but notice this pattern. All the people present in this scene will get turned into cameramen later, and why it is so, I'm going to explain to you just a minute afterwards. So what if the letter C in this group number may hint to that? And now let's get to the woman herself, and the first thing I'd like to mention about her is her, really pretty face. Actually, she even reminded me of such character as Bayonetta a little bit, plus they both wear glasses, which is really sassy in my opinion. And another detail about her appearance that gives away who she in fact is, it's her gesture that she does after saying to a man next to her, "Dave, look back."
Dave, look back?
Of course, it's the same double thumbs up that only Camera Woman does. So I think we have found the actual person behind the mask, if I can put it this way. But if this girl is actually Camera Woman, then who are those people around her? Well, here's my suggestions. I'm pretty much sure that the blonde guy in the white suit on the left is the human version of Mecha Cameraman, but I don't really recognize this man in white pants and black leather jacket. I'm assuming that it might be a glimpse towards some new character that will show up in the future episodes of the series, because I can't remember anyone similarly looking to him. Plus, don't forget how Boom hinted towards the appearance of brand new characters in the future episodes of his series multiple times. And considering how he also hinted at return of several old characters and held his promise, I think we will definitely see some fresh faces really soon. And now it's time to discuss a sullen-looking man on the right Camera Woman refers to. She called him Dave and asked him to turn to the camera to say hi, and it's obvious that she has some really warm feelings towards the guy. But of course he decides to play it colder, which upsets her a little bit as she says, "All right," and gets back to the work. And by the way, at this moment, we learn her actual name, which is Kathy, as she gets addressed by the mysterious guy in a jacket who asks her to proceed with the Phase 1.
Okay, we're all set. Proceed with Phase 1, Kathy.
And at this moment, the sullen guy finally turns to the camera and sneakily shows his thumbs up. And by the way, at some point his face reminded me of Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker from the third Spider-Man movie. Do you guys see the resemblance? And now it's time to put all the pieces of the puzzle together, because I strongly believe that this guy is a human version of PLUNGERMAN, and that would easily explain the bond between his character and CAMERAWOMAN. Plus, all this time we were shown memories about PLUNGERMAN from CAMERAWOMAN'S POV, so it's most logical to assume that it's also PLUNGERMAN when he was a human being and not a cameraman. Apparently they both, combined with Mecha Cameraman, worked in the same team in Alpha Hills Laboratory and knew each other for a very long time, or at least for 6 years, because, as we remember from the second part of episode 70, the secret agent got the role of administrator of the whole complex in 1979, and I believe that this whole project they were working on at that moment also started during this period of time. And what is this project, though? Kathy that states that she is opening the gate, and after that we see the thick beam of bright blue light entering the room behind the glass. And aside from the color of this beam that made me think of Titan Cameraman's blue core, and how it's the token color of cameraman's race in general, this scene also reminded me of something else. And to say more specifically, it looked pretty close to this scene from the movie called Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse, where the characters opened the gates to other multiverses. And this association made me think about the possibility that this whole project could have been focused on reaching some other multiverses as well. And that's probably how the Skibidi virus got to this world and infected it as a whole. Plus, it made me remember Multiverse of Beatbox once again, where Male 07 was featured, and he was able to access multiple universes as well, in order to make as much chaos as possible. And to tell you honestly, guys, I have too many thoughts and ideas on that project and how it's connected to the secret agent, aka the administrator. So I'll make a separate video dedicated to that specifically. Okay, and now before I'll wrap this whole section with flashbacks up and made a cohesive conclusion about all this, let's say a few words about the other characters that got featured in this scenes. Let's start with Lucky Cameraman first, as we saw him in the flashback to episode 15 somewhere in the background staring at PLUNGERMAN directly. And by the way, in case you forgot, he actually had a brother with the black camera instead of white one, and this brother got actually crushed, or at least severely injured, by reactive Skibidi toilet in episode 14. So it actually makes sense that he's here as a part of this squad investigating the scene. And of course, it's worth mentioning that at the moment of epic blasty return of the reactive Skibidi, he's not even trying to oppose him, which is what PLUNGERMAN does. But instead, he's just running away like a little coward. And it's already a meme how he always escapes getting destructed or punished for overconfidence by always running away. And it's funny how even in this frozen shot, we can see PLUNGERMAN approaching the enemy epically, while there's also Lucky Cameraman running for his dear life in the exact same shot. It's almost poetic. And I mean, this strategy kind of works because that's how he managed to stay alive by the latest episodes of the series without even getting injured, if we don't count the moment when he was airbagged by the secret agent, of course. But he's also there for a reason, because Lucky Cameraman is actually another member of Group C mentioned in the oldest flashback of CAMERAWOMAN. Look closely at the opening shot of this scene. Do you see somebody in the light blue pants and a suit walking by? I am absolutely sure that it was the human version of Lucky Cameraman, who is also in the same squad. Which means that he, together with CAMERAWOMAN, Mecha Scientist, and PLUNGERMAN, worked in the same group under the possible leadership of the secret agent, which ties them all together now. And this is just crazy on so many levels. And now, before I'll reach a certain conclusion regarding these flashbacks, let me also say a few words about this best boy. Actually, there's not that much to say in comparison with other characters, but there are still a few very important details about him I need to mention. We saw him only in one flashback for a few seconds, but here's the thing. We can see him almost in the exact same position from episode 54, where he sat similarly to this on the empty toilet tank, staring admirably into the picture in his hands. And based on the fact that it was TV Woman in episode 54, I'd assume that it's still her she's looking at in the company of two other cameramen. This girl is apparently really popular amongst the guys of the Alliance, huh? But is it really her in the picture? because you should keep in mind that the events of this flashback date back to episode 15, where TV men's race wasn't even introduced to us yet. But on the other hand, Camera Woman was also introduced to us in episode 52 only. Although based on all these flashbacks, she was operating under the name of the Alliance's soldier since the earliest episodes of the series. So it's possible that different races knew about each other's existence for a long time, but they weren't ready to unite yet. So it happened gradually and step by step. But apparently cameramen knew about TV Woman long before the Union, and I bet she would be one of the main reasons for the Alliance to get created in the first place. And there's also another detail about Simp Cameraman that I noticed. He was already wearing his iconic colorful tie in this flashback, which means that it was a part of his outfit all this time. So unfortunately, all these cameramen in brown coats but without ties were apparently some other characters that didn't relate to this exact Simp Cameraman. Which is a little bit sad, because I really like the idea that Simp Cameraman would wear this celebrating tie to charm TV Woman in episode 54 after she rescued him earlier. Okay, and now as we got done with flashbacks, we're getting back to the real world, but this time it's far ahead of episode 70, and now it's actual episode 73. It turned out that all this time we have been watching these flashbacks from the Camera Woman's personal tablet, which is titled Cameraman 69, by the way, and considering the context of it all, I found this inscription to be really funny. It seemed like she just wanted to refresh her memories and remember the good old times she spent with Plungerman, and it's really sad but wholesome to realize. I also suspect that she decided to do it so that she would feel more anger and desire to avenge her close friend, because when she joins the battle, she's so furious as she's never been before. And by the way, check out this cold-looking speaker man in the gray suit which carries knives in his hands. I'm pretty sure this is the exact same speakerman that helped Lucky Cameraman get up on his feet in one of the latest secret scenes. I wonder if we'll ever see Lucky Cameraman in his materialistic form, though playing a role of an ordinary Alliance's agent once again. Okay, so then she sets off to battlefield. And the location she's in definitely reminds me of the environment where the events of episode 72 took place, but I still believe that it's a little bit different, but maybe those locations are really close to each other. And by the way, if you're wondering when Camera Woman learned how to fly, let me remind you that he has the jetpack now as the rest of the Alliance's members, which actually differs her from Camera Woman from Dom Studios' Multiverse, where she was able to fly without any jetpack. And I suspected that she used some kind of reactive boosters in her legs for that. And right in the midair, she showed us her new guns attached to her arms in action, and damn, this is majestic to see. And then she lands straight to the Skibidi from the store leak, straight with the legs in his face, as if she's doing some MMA finishing combo or something like that. It looks like the poor freak didn't even have time to fully understand what happened. And although he looks really promising with all these upgrades he is no match to the infuriated Camera Woman who lost her dearest friend. She shots him right in the eye after she knocked the glasses off his face. And this reminded me of the beginning of the first part of episode 69, actually, where we also saw a Skibidi toilet with one of his eyes being pierced by the red valve, which was also a reference to the Valve's logo, by the way. And then she finishes the poor freak off with the combination of multiple merciless actions, and he releases a hilarious scream in this moment. And holy heck, did you understand how she used an actual spiked plunger to deliver him the final blow? This girl really misses Plungerman indeed. And the way he showed him this quite inappropriate gesture before he released another embarrassing scream and finally kicked the bucket also reminded me of Plungerman a little bit. And by the way, I found it pretty hilarious how Boom highlighted this moment in his subtitles by writing "skill issue" in that moment. And also considering how we already heard two "ah" sounds back to back, it's now understandable why Boom chose this exact word for being in the description of this episode. And also in this shot, we can see the figure of the secret agent standing in the distance near the fire exactly as it was in the leak, showing this exact Skibidi toilet that got defeated by Camera Woman. And then she helps this cameraman engineer to get up on his feet, which is pretty difficult to do alone considering how he misses one arm. And I found it to be pretty interesting that he has such a distinctive tie, because usually only important members of the Alliance wore some bright or memorable pieces of clothing. So could it be so that this guy will play some pretty significant role later in this series? Or maybe he was important before. Like let's say he was the one responsible for repairing Plungerman back in the days, or maybe Mecha Cameraman. Well, this short interaction then gets interrupted by 5 nasty Skibidi helicopters. But this gives Camera Woman a reason for showing us her best ability as the POV. So we can see it directly how she highlights every target with her head camera as if she's putting a mark on them, which is impossible to throw off afterwards. And then she finishes them all using the upgraded power of the cannon she activates from her back. And we can see how instead of darts, she uses some sort of big energy impulses now, which seem to be absolutely fatal on impact. And I noticed how in the moment when she was putting the marks on her targets, the time even seemed to slow down a little bit, which is really cool. Hey girl, weren't there any clockmen in your bloodline by any accident? And then as she turns around, we can see the secret agent once again. But from this angle, it seems like he's staring right into Camera Woman's soul, which is extremely unnerving to me for a couple of reasons. And I think that I'll make a separate video about the future fate of Camera Woman that sort of took a role of Plungerman now and how it will affect her connection to the secret agent from now on. And then we see something insane. There is a big shirtless Skibidi mutant who slowly approaches Camera Woman with a freaky smile on his face. Hey bro, is this you trying to flirt or something? Who do you think you are, Jacob from Twilight or something? These crazy face expressions you make ain't gonna melt my heart at all. But thankfully for Camera Woman, this terrible dude flees immediately with an expression of sheer horror on his face, as there is Skibidi scientist appearing on stage who's supposed to be dead, and this mutant knows it. It looks like this half-naked guy was one of the most intelligent Skibidi out there because he flees immediately, while the other Skibidi just stand on one spot there being dumb, and they don't even try to neither flee or shoot this guy down, and instead they just let themselves get destructed. But it turns out that it's just TV Woman who's sitting comfortably inside of the giant puppet of Skibidi Scientist as she sends a cute little video message to Camera Woman's tablet. But of course, G-Man that appeared on the screen too doesn't know about it. So check out the look on his face that came to us straight from this Instagram leak. And I am really happy to see this because my actual prediction that I made while analyzing this leak came true, as I suspected that G-Man could have made such face while seeing Skibidi Scientist or any other old acquaintances again if he would somehow came back from the grave. And this shock on his face really made me believe that this is true G-Man, and not a copy, because damn me if Clone would ever react in such an emotional way. But despite this, G-Man still remains pretty cold-blooded, and shoots Skibidi Scientist with TV Woman sitting inside of it down. And that made Camera Woman really anxious that TV Woman could have been gone. And I understand her fear as she's just lost her dearest friend, but honestly I am absolutely sure that TV Woman could simply teleport the heck out of there. And that's why she was chosen as a pilot for Skibidi Scientist Puppet exactly. So cheer up girl, not everything is lost. But although G-Man shot the puppet down, TV Woman still managed to do one significant thing before her fall, and namely she brought down one of the containers that fell on the ground. And I'm pretty sure that in the beginning of the next part of the episode, we'll see something coming out of it. And although some Skibidi try to take it and fly away with it, Titan Speakerman's shots don't allow that to happen. And with another meme wail, Skibidi fall to the ground again. And as Camera Woman turns her head, we see one of the most epic poses Titan Speakerman has ever did. And man, this boy did plenty of them. In the moment when he slowly gets up as a veteran cowboy from Wild West or something, we can see the music from one of the Valve's logo intros. And I think that there is another reference to their logos as well. Just compare these two shots together. Okay, and now it's time for the whole Titans gang to assemble, and oh boy, G-Man is about to get wrecked, it seems to me. I am absolutely sure that even with all the upgrades he has, he won't be able to defeat them all. But considering how confident he looks like, I also believe that he may have some secret up his sleeve, which can definitely make the whole fight really tricky. But what exactly he can have on his mind, I'll tell you in a separate video, because I'm telling you guys, this episode has so many information I can develop that it's just impossible to fit all my theories and guesses into one video without making it longer it already is. But here's one interesting detail I found in this scene to show you instead. When Titan TV Man enters the scene, he says to G-Man, "There's nowhere to run." And to that, G-Man actually answers himself, which is insane considering that no Skibidi could speak actual human language before. And he says, "Fools, you have no idea what's coming."
You have no idea what's coming.
Which is actually the same phrase that could have been seen in the leak from Boom's store. But Titan TV Man seems to have an answer to everything, so he says, "Whatever is coming, you won't survive to see it.
Whatever is coming, fast to see it.
So I believe that the next part of the episode will start with an intense battle where we will get revealed the inners of the fallen container and also the G-Man's secret. And that was all for today. Write in the comments below about how excited you are to see the second part of 73rd episode, and be sure to subscribe to my channel not to miss my new videos, and also to my Discord, where you can contact me directly and get lots of information for my subscribers only. And that was me, ISOTOILET. See ya!